to your top stories from India and the region. I'm Tanvi Taneja. And for news from the rest of the world, I'm joined by my colleague in London, Ollie Barrett. Ollie, good to have you with us.
Thanks, Tanvi. We've got lots coming up. I'll have news of the long-awaited UK-China talks in Beijing, more US military aid for Ukraine, and London's controversial expansion of a vehicle's emissions zone. But first, over to you for the headlines, Tanvi.
After the coup in Niger, now the military in the Central African nation of Gabon says it has seized power.
With the defense and security forces meeting within the Committee for the Transition and Restoration of Institutions, CTRI, on behalf of the Gabonese people and guarantor of the protection of institutions, have decided to defend peace by putting an end to the current regime.
Indian Space Research Organization conducts the launch rehearsal vehicle internal checks for India's Sun mission, Aditya L1, ahead of its launch on Saturday. And Hurricane Idalia on the brink of slamming the US state of Florida. Mandatory evacuation orders issued in some parts of the state. Up first, news of the Central African country, Gabon. So after Niger, the military in the Central African country of Gabon says it has seized power. This comes after Gabon's President Ali Bongo, who has been in power for 14 years, was re-elected for a third term. A group of Gabon's top military officers have gone on national television to announce the annulment of elections and dissolution of institutions. They said that the military have taken over power because the recent elections were not credible.
On this day, August 30, 2023, with the defense and security forces meeting within the Committee for the Transition and Restoration of Institutions, CTRI, on behalf of the Gabonese people and guarantor of the protection of institutions, have decided to defend peace by putting an end to the current regime. The general elections of August 26, 2023, as well as the truncated results, are cancelled. The borders are closed until further notice. All institutions of the Republic are dissolved.
The European Union has said that it will discuss the situation in Gabon as it thinks it is a big issue for Europe.
The whole area, starting with Central African Republic, then Mali, then Burkina Faso, now Niger, maybe Gabon. It's in a very difficult situation, and certainly the ministers, today defense ministers and tomorrow foreign affairs ministers, have to have a deep thought on what is going on there and how we can improve our policy in respect to these countries. This is a big issue for Europe.
Meanwhile, hundreds of people took to the streets of Gabon's capital, Libreville, on Wednesday to celebrate after the military's announcement. In an overnight television announcement, a dozen senior officers declared the election results were cancelled, borders were closed, and state institutions were dissolved. And now news from India. The country's space agency, ISRO, has conducted the launch rehearsal of its solar mission, Aditya L1. This will be India's first space-based Indian mission to study the sun. The mission is scheduled to be launched on Saturday at 11:50 in the morning from the Sriharikota spaceport in the Indian state of Andhra Pradesh. Aditya L1 spacecraft is designed for providing remote observations of the solar corona and in situ observations of the solar wind at Langrangian Point, which is about 1.5 million kilometers from the Earth. And The Indian Space Agency has also shared the latest image of its lunar mission, Chandrayaan-3. The image of Vikram lander of Chandrayaan-3 has been captured by the navigation camera of the rover Pragyan. Earlier, Chandrayaan-3 confirmed the presence of sulfur on the moon's surface. The rover has also detected traces of aluminium, calcium and iron. The hunt for hydrogen, although, is underway. India's space agency said on Tuesday that the rover had been rerouted safely after encountering a 4-meter crater on the lunar surface. Chandrayaan-3's lander and rover have completed almost half of their design life on the moon's surface and have been transmitting scientific data every day for the past week. Although India's historic lunar mission has garnered worldwide interest, it turns out that Chandrayaan-3's success has been a global effort too. A remote part of southwestern England has provided cutting-edge technology that's playing an important role in this mission. DD India's John Beaver got a rare behind-the-scenes look at the satellite Earth station, helping to keep the mission control, well, under control.
7,000 kilometres from India is an array of equipment communicating with objects much further away. The Goonhilly Satellite Earth Station spent a large part of its early life dedicated to broadcasting TV signals. In 1969, it helped transmit pictures of the moon landing to enthralled viewers. 44 years later, it's playing its own part in the next chapter of lunar exploration as one of the sites keeping engineers on Earth in touch with the historic Indian mission.
During the landing phase of Chandrayaan-3, we were preparing to take over for the next phase on the surface. So we had both the excitement of seeing the landing happen, but on the other hand, it's calmly going through all of the processes that we need to do to make sure that we don't do anything wrong and everything's going to go according to plan.
Goonhilly is part of a space industry that employs almost 50,000 people in the UK. The country is second only to the United States in terms of the number of satellites it produces, and the site here helps engineers keep in touch with many of them. The largest antenna here is 32 metres in diameter. It needs to be that big to send and receive signals to deep space. As well as the Indian lunar mission, they're also using this antenna to talk to the European Space Agency's Mars Express mission, 225 million kilometres away. The technology here is compatible with space agencies around the world. It's an industry dominated by big players. But as the only private company in the world offering these communication services, the team here are excited about the possibilities being opened up by India's celestial achievements.
So if space missions do cost billions and tens of billions, that's going to restrict and limit the reality of what you can do in space. So we need that paradigm shift. We need what India is doing, and we need what Goonhilly is doing in order for us to continue to expand that exploration. So it's a really important model shift here that needs to happen.
As the price of getting to space comes down, those involved will keep looking up to the stars and think this could be the beginning of a new chapter in space exploration. John Beaver at the Goonhilly Satellite Earth Station, reporting for DD India.
On to Europe now. Britain's top diplomat, James Cleverly, began a long-awaited visit to China on Wednesday as the two countries attempt to stabilise their ties. My colleague Ollie Barrett is in London and gives us more on this and other stories making it to the headlines. Ollie, over to you.
Thanks, Tanvi. Yes, the UK's Foreign Minister James Cleverly met with China's Vice President Han Zheng in the first such visit to Beijing by such a senior British official in 5 years. In the meeting, James Cleverly says that he stressed that face-to-face exchanges will help the UK and China to avoid misunderstandings. The UK Foreign Minister is also holding talks with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi on Wednesday. The UK is making efforts to mend ties with China in a bid to restore relations that plummeted during former Prime Minister Boris Johnson's tenure.
Countries like ours meet and speak face to face on regular occasions to enhance understanding, to avoid misunderstanding, and to address the challenges and differences in opinion that all countries have in bilateral relations, but also to take advantage of our shared endeavours to address the issues.
The US is vowing to continue to back Ukraine in its war with Russia. It's announced a further $250 million in military assistance for the country. The US Defense Ministry says the new package includes additional air defense and artillery munitions, mine-clearing equipment and medical vehicles. The new package also includes more than 3 million rounds of small arms ammunition. More than $43 billion in US military aid has been provided to Ukraine since the start of the Ukraine-Russia conflict. US President Joe Biden had asked the country's lawmakers to approve an additional $24 billion in assistance.
Today, the Biden-Harris administration is announcing a new package of security assistance for Ukraine to meet Ukraine's critical security and defense needs. It includes additional mine-clearing equipment, missiles for air defense, ammunition for artillery and HIMARS systems, and over 3 million rounds of small arms ammunition. This package will help Ukrainian forces on the battlefield and support its air defenses. The United States and our allies and partners will stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes.
President Recep Tayyip Erdogan of Turkey is all set to visit Russia to discuss the lapsed Black Sea grain initiative with Russian President Vladimir Putin. According to Turkish media, Erdogan's visit will focus on a looming food crisis by aiming to revive the Black Sea grain deal. Erdogan and Putin will meet in the Russian Black Sea resort city of Sochi. The Black Sea grain initiative was brokered between Russia and Ukraine in July 2022. It expired on the 17th of July this year after Moscow quit the agreement. A drone attack on the city of Pskov in northwestern Russia has damaged 4 heavy transport planes. Video showed smoke and fire rising from a distance after the huge explosion. No injuries were reported. Russian media says 4 transport planes were damaged on the military airfield. Ukraine has not confirmed its involvement in the incident.
The actions of the Ukrainian regime will not go unpunished. Russian law enforcement structures are investigating and properly documenting all the facts of shelling by Ukrainian militants of Russian region and their other criminal actions.
Meanwhile, at least 2 people have been killed in a Russian missile and drone attack on the Ukrainian capital of Kiev. The bodies of the 2 people killed were found in a non-residential building, and 2 others were injured due to glass shards. According to Kiev authorities, several buildings suffered damage from falling debris. London Mayor Sadiq Khan says clean air is a right, not a privilege, as the city's ultra-low emission zone is expanded this week. The scheme has sparked small protests, with opponents saying that it's been introduced too quickly and disproportionately affects poorer residents. DD India's Julia Chapman reports from London.
All 32 London boroughs now fall under the ultra-low emission zone, meaning drivers of older, more polluting cars need to pay a charge in order to enter that area. This is a scheme that was first introduced in central London in 2019 in order to bring down pollution levels in the British capital. Since then, it has expanded twice. It now encompasses the entire area of Greater London, but it's not been without its controversy. There are many very vocal opponents to ULEZ, many of whom say that it is simply too quick to be bringing out this expansion of the ULEZ zone. Many as well objecting to the cost, saying this is a time where there are huge cost of living pressures on London residents, and this is simply an inappropriate time to put this additional burden on them. But the London mayor says that 9 out of 10 cars are already ULEZ compliant in the capital, so it will be a relatively low number of people affected affected, and there are also incentives for those with more polluting, non-compliant cars to scrap those vehicles and buy new ones. Each of them are eligible for around £2,000 or $2,500 in order to do that. Now, some say that's simply not going to be enough for a brand new car, but that is the incentive that is being offered in order to get pollution levels down, which the London Mayor Sadiq Khan says is necessary because there are some 4,000 premature deaths in the capital every year that are directly linked to air pollution. Julia Chapman in London, reporting for DD India.
Julia Chapman there reporting from London. That's it from me here in London as well. Tanvi, back to you in Delhi.
Thank you, Ollie. My colleague Ollie Barrett joining us from our London bureau. You're with us on DD India Global. Still to come on the show. EU defense ministers gather for informal talks in Toledo, Spain. India allows exports of non-basmati white rice trapped at ports. And once in a blue moon, skygazers will get to witness again the extraordinary celestial occurrence of a rare super blue moon today.
Welcome to Jaipur.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I'm Tanvi Taneja. On to America now. Hurricane Idalia continues to intensify ahead of its anticipated landfall on Florida's west coast, bringing strong winds, high tides and heavy rains. As the National Guard prepares for rescues, authorities have issued mass evacuations in low-lying areas.
This is the calm before the storm. Hurricane Idalia continues to intensify by drawing energy from the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico before it finally makes landfall on Florida's Gulf Coast. Residents in Florida are preparing for the worst. Many are evacuating their homes and moving to safer locations.
I just feel like no one should probably stay at this point.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who is seeking the 2024 Republican presidential nomination, has declared a state of emergency and has urged all residents to move to higher grounds.
So this is crunch time right now. We're going to get hit with a major hurricane, and it is going to have major impacts, particularly along Florida's Big Bend region. Take the appropriate precautions to protect you and your family. And once the storm passes, we will have help that will be on the way.
U.S. President Joe Biden has spoken to the Florida governor and assured all help to deal with the upcoming hurricane.
We're providing everything that he possibly needs. We're in constant contact. There's going to be, I think we're worried about the surge, the ocean surge. We're going to make sure they have everything they need. Thank you.
Over 5,500 National Guards have been deployed as a precautionary measure, and thousands of workers from the electricity department have been kept on standby to help restore power quickly after the storm passes. Abhishek Bose for DD India.
In South America, 2 young Venezuelans are trying to raise awareness about climate change by turning single-use plastics into valuables. In their workshop, they gave a second life to products that have been thrown away or abandoned. DD India's Mary Trini Meena reports.
One man's trash is another man's treasure, says an old proverb. But here at NEO Workshop in Venezuela, nothing is considered waste. Two young entrepreneurs came up with the idea of turning single-use plastics into valuables. But first, all bins and bottles must be cleaned, sorted, and categorized.
We're now creating and enjoying the process of seeing materials that are waste and thinking, how can we transform them? How can we take that something that's finished its useful cycle and be able to give it a second life and turning it into an object with more value than it initially had?
4 months ago, they began making flower pots by recycling plastic containers. Each pot is unique and different since the color pattern changes in the production of each piece. 18 years old Luisandro Leon is in charge of feeding the plastic into a shredder, which will break it down into much smaller pieces. The workshop processes plastic type 2 and 5, which are commonly used as food containers and plastic bottles. Then, an injection molding machine helps to melt the plastic and turn it into the final product.
When a person drinks a soft drink, throws that away, and that ruins the environment. Here, what we can do is to take that waste and reuse it to make new things.
In Venezuela, only 5% of the garbage thrown away is recycled, according to unofficial estimates. It is not mandatory for citizens to separate solids, plastic or glass waste at home. NEOS welcomes individual donations and buys recycled plastic as well. Here at the workshop, every bottle cap, plastic container, or even all discarded movies are transformed into a new world full of possibilities. The goal is to create both quality and useful objects. NEOS founders are currently testing new products, including eyeglasses frames made from 100% recycled materials. All products are sold online. The idea is to expand to a clothing and footwear line in the coming months.
In many places, we have seen the impact of pollution with images of garbage islands floating in the oceans. But with these projects, we can directly or indirectly attack these types of issues.
A sustainable and environmentally friendly business that hopes to make a profit, but also help the planet. In Caracas, Maritrini Mena reporting for DD India.
Great initiative there. We're going back to Europe. EU defense ministers have gathered for informal talks in Toledo, Spain. DD India's Alex Cadier is in Brussels and has sent us this report.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine is once again top of the agenda for European defense ministers, as it has been at every meeting since February of last year. They're meeting in an old weapons factory in Toledo, Spain, a fitting place to discuss the kind of support Kyiv will need in the coming months. In the last week alone, the plan to deliver F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine started to take shape. The country's defense minister says they could be operational as soon as spring 2024. The plan is being spearheaded by the Netherlands and Denmark, who are leading a coalition of countries who will train Ukrainian pilots over the next 6 months. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he expects to receive around 40 aircraft, which the Dutch and Danish air forces have recently retired. The EU ministers will also discuss the situation in Niger. Just over a month after the country's military toppled the democratically elected president, the EU is still concerned about what the coup could mean for stability in the region. Ministers will want to address what the situation means for the migration deal the EU had struck with Niger and how vital uranium imports could be affected. Finally, the EU's defence representatives will meet with their counterparts from the United Nations and NATO in a bid to further strengthen their cooperation on regional and global security issues. Above all, though, this meeting's primary focus will be on Europe's support for Ukraine in the face of Russia's attempted invasion. That means monitoring the current counter-offensive on the ground, but also planning what weapons, training and equipment Kyiv will need in the months and years to come. Alex Cadier in Brussels, reporting for DD India.
And now let's take a look at what else is making it to the news across the world. Heavy rain leaves a trail of destruction in various parts of Bolivia. Mudslides because of relentless rain claimed 3 lives and left many trapped. Search efforts were on to rescue the survivors. Mexico's Navy has seized 4 tons of cocaine from a boat at the Pacific Ocean after chasing the smugglers. During the 2 separate operations in the Pacific Ocean, the Navy also found 5,200 litres of fuel and detained 11 people. Ukraine's eastern metropolis of Kharkiv has built dozens of classrooms in metro stations to allow children to return to in-person teaching. These classrooms have been started to shield its school children from the threat of supersonic Russian missiles fired at short range. Kharkiv schools have been forced to teach online throughout the war, as some Russian missiles can reach the city in under a minute. India recently removed the ban on its non-basmati exports that was imposed on July 20th. An official government order issued late on Tuesday authorized traders to export their non-basmati white rice shipments, which were held at ports following the ban. The spokesperson of India's Ministry of External Affairs said, and I quote, "India and Singapore enjoy a very close strategic partnership characterized by shared interests, close economic ties, and strong people-to-people connect. In view of this special relationship, India has decided to allow export of rice to meet the food security requirements of Singapore. Formal orders in this regard will be issued shortly," unquote. And sky gazers, get ready for an extraordinary celestial occurrence. A rare super blue moon is set to grace the night skies on Wednesday, the second one in August, by the way. Supermoon, which makes the moon appear slightly bigger and brighter, is the second supermoon to appear this August. There won't be another occurrence until the year 2037. Sky watchers across the globe can witness this rare phenomena just after sunset, and people can also witness this event early morning on 31st of August. And on to some sports news now. 2-time US Open champion Venus Williams suffered her most lopsided loss in 24 appearances at the Grand Slam tournament with a 6-1, 6-1 defeat at the hands of qualifier Greet Minen in the first round. The German smacked 24 winners and saved all 6 break points she faced to dispatch the veteran American, who she reveres. Hubert Hurkacz overhauled Marc-André Huzier by 4-6, 5-7, 7-6, 6-3, 6-1. Hubert will play Jack Draper in the next round. And for more updates of the US Open, take a look at our next report.
Top seed Carlos Alcaraz progressed to the second round of the US Open 2023 after his opponent Dominic Koepfer retired due to an ankle injury. Koepfer withdrew his 6 points into the game after being injured while stepping backwards. Jannik Sinner is embracing his status as a US Open title contender. The number 6 seed swiftly dispatched German veteran Yannick Hanfmann 6-3, 6-1, 6-1. Former US Open champion Andy Murray earned his 200th major win when he overcame Frenchman Corentin Moutet 6-2, 7-5, 6-3 to reach the second round. Third seed Daniil Medvedev needed just 74 minutes to cruise into the second round with a dominant win over Attila by 6-1, 6-1 and 6-0. The 12th seed and 2020 finalist Alexander Zverev beat Australian Alexander Vukic 6-4, 6-4, 6-4. 19th seed Dimitrov win the 5-set thriller 6-7, 6-7, 6-1, 7-5, 7-6 to set up a meeting with Britain's Andy Murray. John Isner beat Facundo Diaz Acosta of Argentina by 6-4, 6-3, 7-6 in his final tournament in professional tennis. Sports Desk, DD India.
So that's all we have for you in this edition of DD India Global. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram and YouTube at DD India Live. We will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja. From all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Global. Namaskar.